Good morning, everyone. It's Joker, and today we are back with another slime video because I am back in town. This is technically the second video I'll have recorded after being back, but it's the first one that's going to go up. This is the Should You Summon for Diablo. Oh, a day late. Sorry, my bad. I kind of wasn't here. Deal with it. I was too busy winning money in Vegas. I actually came out of Vegas up money, which is not something a lot of people can say, so I'm very happy about that. So, Diablo. He came out, we knew what his second skill was, and it's kind of wonky, it's gimmicky. His first skill was unknown until he came out last night, so I'm sure a lot of you have already know his kit, but I'm going to go over it anyways in case you didn't care and didn't play last night and you're waiting for me. By all means, whatever you want to do. But he is dark. He is physical. His banner, by the way, is the exact same as Shizu's, except swap Shizu for Diablo, and that's what you get. It's got Summer Shizu, New Year's Blessing Rimuru, and Warrior's Mind Rimuru as EX characters. It's literally the same banner, just a different banner unit, right? Different featured unit. He's dark and physical, as we expected. Commander, Primal Demon, Tempest Elite. He uses a Dark Fist, just like every other frigging Diablo ever released in this game, besides a free-to-play one, and win Diablo. But I said dark. His outfit is literally the same as the OG Dark Diablo. It's just, obviously he's got the Luminaries now that he's trapped in his ult, which is a nice-looking ult. But if you have made a Dark Fist for any of those previous Diablos, just rip it off of them and put it on him, because none of them are EX characters. But his skills. He is a single target Dark Physical ult, 490%. No additional effect, he is just damage. And then there is his first skill. Increases his own attack by 100%, and then increases his own synergy power by 40%. This by itself, for 80 points, is a very, very, very strong buff for himself, right? 100% attack. Attack isn't the most powerful buff in the world, but it does help you hit harder. Synergy power is actually a pretty hefty buff. It's really good. 40% is pretty much what they've been doing for synergy power buffs. Like, Idol Shuna has 40%, Guy has 40%, now he has 40%, and then we have a whole bunch of Ians that do synergy down. That's a different story. But, by itself, this is a very good skill. Only for him, though. He is a very selfish DPS character who doesn't bring too much to the table for any other team builds where he is not the focus. So, the second skill is the one we already knew about. It's the gimmick. So, chance to apply Lord's Ambition state to himself. So it's kind of like Drago, where it's a self kind of status that changes what he does. Not exactly what Drago does, but it's that kind of same format. So for 2 turns, he nullifies certain weakening effects. And that means all stat down effects and status abnormality effects, excluding some specific types, will be nullified until Lord's Ambition status ends. So what this means is that crit nerf, attack nerf, crit seal, pierce nerf, defense down, all of those red style of buffs you will not have to worry about. And then the purple buffs like bind or poison or frostbite, those will also be nullified for the 2 turns that this skill is active. And the only thing that it doesn't do is the magic depleted state, which is what Megumin is after she ults, where she passes out, canon. But he can't do that anyways. It's only for Megumin. She's the only character in the game that has this, so that means nothing. And then the Valor Cup effects, Loop effects, and Weakening Fields are not affected. Alright, and then it says, it is not possible to stack the Lord's Ambition status, so previous instances will be overwritten. This is a very important part of his skill that you need to keep aware of, because alongside of nullifying all those debuffs for 2 turns, he also stacks weakness resistance until the end of battle after the enemy's turn is over. So when you apply this skill for 2 turns, after everything is done, the enemy will then passively get a 10% weakness resistance debuff on. And since this skill lasts for 2 turns, you don't need to spam it every turn because the status will be on him for 2 turns. So that means you're guaranteed 2 turns of weakening that you don't need to worry about. And then after the the second turn, then you will need to reapply it, and then you'll get 2 and 2 and 2 and 2, right? So in theory, on an 8-turn fight, you would have 7 stacks because you can't use it turn 1, and maybe not even turn 2. So maybe 6 stacks is a little bit more reasonable, attainable. I'm sure there are ways to do it. Don't get me wrong. But I think 6 is what you're generally going to see if everything works in your favor. But, trying to use this skill back to back to back to back isn't going to do anything, because it's at the end of the enemy's turn where it actually kicks in. So if you use the skill every single turn, you will still only be getting 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 at the end of the turn. So there's no point in spamming the skill. It's just, hey, here you go. Here's a little bit extra thing for you. The nullifying weakening effects, though, it only lasts 2 turns, like everything else, like what I've just been talking about. But if there's a fight that nerfs you for 4 turns, 8 turns, forever, then you will nullify those debuffs for 2 of those turns. And then the debuffs will come back on. And you'll have to reapply the buff over and over and over to continually keep yourself out of harm's way of those debuffs. Because if you use it for 2 turns, it's like you're good for 2 turns. And then you're going to be debuffed again for the next however long those debuffs are going to last. So that is something to keep in mind. It does not save you forever. It is a limited time effect, but you better make the most of that limited time, right? And then at the end of it, he rushes his own ult gauge by 30%, which is good because he is a DPS character. And running on a blue-focused team, sometimes it can be a little bit difficult to get ult gauge unless you have someone to rush it for you. So, or you have rainbow orbs, which with this team you could get away with, but oh well. Realized during editing that I forgot to talk about the rest of his kit, so we're going to do that now before we move on. His Valor trait is pretty terrible. 2 combo, he nerfs orange gauge increases. It's one of the most useless things in the world. People use orange teams a lot, but this is, you using it against them. If you have his ult, if you swapped him in, it really doesn't make much of a difference, because everything's going to die. His actual trait, if you happen to pull dupes of him, he gives you protection gauge every 3 turns, which is fairly good. I prefer 2-turn protectors more, but 3 turns is almost as good. All right, as long as you can get extra protection gauge, it's always a win in my books. So there are a lot of other units that do turn 3. There's a lot of characters that do turn 2. You can just add him to the pool, and that is fine. He gets up to 7 points every 3 turns if you get 3 dupes of him. I don't recommend that. If you max him out, he gets an extra 20% ult damage. Okay, cool. And then his EX board, he gets extra synergy power with a Rimuru, which is kind of interesting because Rimuru, if you have the full meta, it's, Glenda, Hinata, Shizu, him, and then probably Dark Shensha or, Anniversary Hinata. There's no Rimuru there. You could put Fount of Wisdom Rimuru on in place of Shizu. That would certainly work, and, it's a very good substitution. And then there's, like New Year's Blessing Rimuru, but, we were using him as a DPS character. Now that Diablo rushes his own ult, you don't need the rainbow orbs anymore, really. So, what Rimuru are you putting on the team that isn't already covered? I don't know. But canonically, yeah, it works. But, alright, so there's the rest of his kit, and let's move back to the other part of the video, wherever I put this. It's an interesting skill, right? He's got his massive attack buff, he's got his weakness resistance down, he's rushing his own ult, he's cleansing himself only. And that's the important part, is the word only. He's only doing it for himself, which means that he really does not bring a lot of value to any other team unless you put him on another team and he is the DPS character, right? You put him on the Primal Demon team, you make him the DPS instead of Blanc, great, fantastic, awesome. But if you try and put him on the Fount of Wisdom team as a support character to Hinata, like, what is he doing for Hinata? 10% weakness resistance down every turn? It's like, no, there are much better units you can bring that would be doing a whole lot more stuff for Hinata than just that. So he's only good for damage, for himself. This cleanse effect is only good in, like, 3 fights right now. I expect that the Jubilee for this month, when it comes out in a week or so, if that, will have some kind of debuff effect that you'll need to take advantage of the skill. And if you don't have him, then you're SOL. Sorry, that's what Jubilee is anyways. But, you know, as far as other heavy debuffing stages, there's not a lot. There's, you know, the Hero Sword stage, which I have a video recorded already that may have gone up already, I don't remember. But, you know, Hinata nerfs the crap out of you forever, right? Until the end of battle. So if you use Diablo in this fight, you can cleanse it for 2 turns, and then it'll come back. Okay, cool. It's not like the stage is overly difficult now. Some people who are brand spanking new may have trouble with it, but EX teams do a whole lot more than 204,000 damage in 1 turn. Like, they do millions of damage in 1 turn. So it's not, like, catastrophic that you don't have this Diablo to cleanse those debuffs, right? And then, like, the only other 2 stages I can think of are old Tempered Edge stages. Clayman, right? If you don't have a unit that can bind, or no, that can burn Clayman on the 2nd turn, he will bind you and poison you, and he also puts a crit rate down debuff. Diablo can cleanse those for 2 turns. Great. Again, this stage is more difficult than the hero stage, probably, depending on your point of view. But it's still an old stage. This came out for Christmas of 2022, right? Almost a year and a half ago, more than a year and a half ago. Like, I don't know where else you're going to use this except the Jubilee that's coming, and then you're never going to use this Diablo again, right? He does really big damage, and if you're starting now and the only team you have is the Commander Force, then yeah, he will be your DPS. He will do fantastic damage. He is by no means a necessary character to clear, you know, all the content. If you have Hinata and you have Renard and you have, you know, free-to-play Glenda, then you're pretty much set as long as you bring, like, another Orb Changer for oranges and maybe another support unit like Light Lumi or something like that. And Fount of Wisdom Rimuru, I don't know, free-to-play Geld. That team can clear 99% of the game, minus Jubilee and, like, Inferno stages of beatdown battle, which is the same with almost any team nowadays. They can all clear X number of things minus Inferno and Jubilee. Because, you know, for Jubilee you need the full meta to really do it, or very strong characters that are supporting. So, like, if you pull this Diablo, and you don't have Hinata, you don't have Renard, it's like, great. You have a DPS character. Where the fuck are you going to use him? Well, I don't know. What team are you going to put him on? Oh, I don't have a Protector. Okay, well, you've literally done yourself no help. You're better off to either continue summoning for Hinata and Renard, or just skipping. If you haven't liked this meta at all, and you're like, hey, new characters, they're in their Season 3 stuff, I don't care, well, minus Shizu, we're going to save for the next meta, then continue to save. If you are happy with Hinata and Renard, maybe you have Shizu, you don't need to have Shizu, then I would say stop, unless you're a sweaty tryhard trying to get in Jubilee, in which case you're not watching this video, because you don't need to know, because you already summoned last night, because you all have problems. Not saying I don't. I wanted to summon last night too, but I had to wait till I got home. And if you're like, I pulled Shizu on a single, I don't have Diablo, what banner should I go for? You should either go for Renard and Hinata, and if you don't like them, then just stop. Don't summon anymore. Take your W that you got one of these units in 10 pity or like first multi, Koban multi, whatever. Those free Kobans that we got for logging in this month. Take that W and walk away. Don't summon anymore. Save your crystals for a banner or a meta that you actually do enjoy. So I'd say overall this meta is actually fairly skippable. We just got the Primal Demon meta. It's blue stacking. It does a butt ton of damage. This is another blue stacking team. It does a butt ton of damage. That's what blue stacking teams do, is a butt ton of damage. You're not missing out by missing one of them. Like, if your Primal Demon team already clears everything, you don't need this team. If your DPS for whatever X team Exalted Champions that you have does damage and you cleared most everything, then you don't need this Diablo. You don't need Shizu. You don't need these guys. You're looking pretty good. So I do not recommend summoning for Diablo for the following reasons. One, he's on a single featured unit banner. It's only him. It's not a double banner like this, so the value is instantly cut in half. That's not great. Two, Diablo doesn't support any other teams that you're going to summon for, right? Again, he's a selfish character who only does stuff for himself, and that does not help any previous team that you have or any future team that's coming along, unless you need him for damage, of which case there will be another damage unit for that meta 3-4 months down the line anyways. And, 3, there's no use for his debuff, really anywhere. So, those are the 3 reasons why I don't think Diablo is worth summoning for. If you love Diablo, if you simp for him, he's your husbando, then be my guest. If you really like his kit, then be my guest. But if you're on the fence, I would say no. If you don't have Hinata and Renard and you do want them, I would say continue summoning for them. And if you literally don't give 2 shits about this entire meta, then hey, thanks for watching the video. You didn't need this, but I appreciate your view. But that's it for me, guys. Take it easy, and I'll see you all later.